All right, hello everybody. It's great to be here with all of you. Let me start by sharing why I was excited and interested to be joining this conversation today. I'm Roger Lynch, I'm the CEO of Condé Nast, and for those of you who may not be familiar, Condé Nast publishes over 20 different publications around the world in 32 different markets like Vogue and GQ, Wired, Vanity Fair, Architectural Digest, and probably most relevant for this discussion today, Condé Nast Traveler. Sustainable tourism is a pillar of Condé Nast Traveler, of the mission, and it's something that our editors have been dedicated to covering for many, many years now. And one of the main reasons for this is not just that it's because it's the right thing to do, but it's also because increasingly what consumers want, especially with younger consumers. They want to travel environmentally consciously. They want to feel that, and we feel that it's our job to make sure that we provide resources and information to make it easier for them to be stewards of our planet. It's also because we know that global tourism is on the rise, and it's not quite yet back to pre-pandemic levels, but it's close. And so thinking about how we can harness all of this activity and intention into positive change is actually quite exciting. In fact, I think I speak for all of us up here when I say that tourism can actually be a solution in helping to solve some of the challenges we face today. It stimulates economies. This also enables the activation of conservation efforts that can safeguard natural ecosystems and preserve cultural heritage. So, we're going to start off. I'm going to have questions for each of our panelists, and I'll introduce them with each question. But we'll start with His Excellency Ahmad Al-Khatib, the Minister of Tourism for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Your Excellency, how can sustainable tourism support economic growth in a region or a local community while also protecting culture and the environment?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Roger. This is like mission impossible, but we will try our best to both grow the business and protect the environment. Back in 2020, we published with the World Travel and Tourism Council and X4 Intelligence the first report that calculate how much the industry, the travel and tourism, is creating of carbon emissions, and we landed at about 8.2%, which is not as bad as I was expecting. And the main two reasons, or the biggest contributor of the 8%, are the food, number one, food waste, and second is the water waste, which could be controlled. And this is a fact. We knew this in 2020, in October 2020, and we looked at the industry, and everybody is expecting this industry to grow in excess of the global growth. And we reached to 1.4 billion travelers as per of the UN tourism report that was published yesterday. And we are almost close, as Roger said, to 2019 numbers, historical number. And we will grow from there to reach to about, it is expected that we will reach to 2 billion by 2030. With the 600 million additional travelers that will come from many markets, but mainly from China, it is expected that the 400 million people will move from the low-income bracket in China to the middle-income bracket, and they will demand travel. And in India, it is expected that the number of 40 million travelers to double in 10 years. With these facts, we need to take actions in order to protect the planet. We have the people and the environment, and to come up with the policies through the UN tourism, the WTTC, and through the WEF and Davos. And therefore, we in Saudi Arabia established the Global Sustainability Center, Global Tourism Sustainability Center, and this center will be publishing reports. They already published 2 reports to make countries and people aware about, this coming risk. If you ask me what are the challenges, future challenges, I would say the human capital capacity and the sustainability. And we look at the sustainability from three lenses: the social sustainability, economical sustainability, and environmental sustainability. Today, we're discussing the environmental sustainability, and therefore, we have, as governments and through WTTC and WEF, the private sector, have to take everything to try to control the food waste. That is the main cause of the environment unsustainability and the water waste. And therefore, we know the problem, like the doctor when we diagnose a patient. Now we need to describe the medicine in order to control the 8%. The business will grow. We need to control the 8%, at least maintain it at that level.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone, please meet William McDonough, the Chief Executive of McDonough Innovation. Bill, you've done a lot of work at the World Economic Forum, and you chair the Council on the Circular Economy, which is a term and a concept that's now been widely adopted. I'm curious, as an architect, what is your point of view on how urban design plays a role in strengthening local identities and creating authentic tourism experiences?
If we look back at the history of cities and urban design, we see, as we watch artificial intelligence coming in, we understand it mostly because it's become generative architecture. Artificial intelligence. It tells us stories in language we understand. And the thing about cities and over time is that we're dealing with things that develops out of natural wisdom rather than just artificial intelligence. So I think that's a beautiful thing to see the cities having bones and having breathing systems and having parks and water that is all readable and makes sense to us as humans. So I think the combination of natural wisdom and orientation for wind and sun and the now artificial intelligence where we can tune and articulate the dimensions in very precise ways is becoming something quite special.
I'd be curious, for you, it was operating in this space a long time, what are some of the proudest achievements? I know we were talking earlier about something you're working on now that sounds really interesting, but when you think back, what are some of your proudest achievements related to this?
Well, we did the world's largest green roof in Dearborn, Michigan in 1999, and everybody thought that seemed a bit odd for an automobile factory, but it ended up saving $35 million in capex using natural systems instead of artificial. And as we look at what's going on now in the kingdom, we're seeing ways to solve today's problems using intelligence and science. We've just developed at KAUST a way to use sand dune sand, which has heretofore not been available for concrete because it's spherical. And we found a way to use it, which saves us and people from having to ship sand from Australia to the Middle East. The Burj Khalifa was made from sand from Australia. So it's a scope 3 reduction of 60% by not shipping sand halfway around the world. So we have a lot of good sand locally, and we're going to use it. So
there's no shortage of sand. It's just got to be in the right shape.
Right place.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to sustainability. All sustainability is local by its nature.
Yeah.
And that's what's so exciting about what's going on in Saudi Arabia right now, is they're articulating a local response to a global issue. And so that helps everyone because we all learn from each other. And we can celebrate each other's cultures. The expo, I'm sure, will be quite exciting for that reason in 2030.
Yeah. Well, speaking of local, next we have actually our host, Martin Niediger. Martin is the CEO of Switzerland Tourism. And Martin, what are some of the things that you've done in Switzerland to support sustainable tourism programs?
Well, first of all, of course, here the host is His Excellency in Saudi House, but the moment you leave the house, it's us.
Okay.
And it's wonderful to have you all here, so make sure you stay longer and you go and see a little bit more of Davos and of Switzerland. So it's wonderful to have you here. Our organization exists for 100 years. Tourism is as old as 150, 160 years old in Switzerland. And since Switzerland Tourism exists, we do regular surveys. And the result of these surveys is the most boring result ever. Whenever we ask the people, why do you love Switzerland? Why do you come here? What's your main travel motive? For 106 years, the result is always nature, landscape, mountains. This seems to be something that overshadows everything. So this shows us how important it is. It is our core. It is our very, very core. And if that gets hurt, if nature, landscape, mountains, if something suffers from that, our business goes absolutely down. So what we have done a couple of years back is we wanted to find a way to mobilize the whole industry. In Switzerland, we have 35,000 touristic SMEs, and they need to be convinced to be on board, and they need, if ever possible, to speak the same language. And so we came up with a program called Sustainable. As you can already decode it, it's the mix between Switzerland and sustainable, because we wanted to give it our own way. And our goal is to have at least half of all tourism providers in that. It's an easy program with level 1 to 3, because not everyone has the same level, so we have an entry level. And it covers everything from, obviously, from the ecological aspect, how to treat and pay staff, how to also make sure the profitability is there. And I just love how you described it, so simple and so true. Local, I think, is absolutely key. So we want to make sure that you, our service providers, use the local material, be it for building or for transportation. They should use local staff. They should use the local food supplies. So this is very key. However, it sounds so easy, you know, when we up here on stage talk about it. I think sometimes it's easier to mobilize and to talk with our industry than to the customers, because they say they want it, but their behavior, they show something else. So I think there's still a lot to do to make sure that if we make the first step as an industry, that the customers also buy into that.
Do you see, I mean, it's interesting you say that they say they want it, but their behavior doesn't show that. Do you see that difference in age demographics when you look at a question like that? I would imagine younger people, we read at least that they're much more interested in sustainability, especially as it relates to experiences and tourism. But do they not behave in a way that...
Our data show that this is wishful thinking. I myself, I have a 19-year-old son, and I think his behavior, or behavior generally also on data, not just on this one example, is that they have the same need for international and intercultural exchange. They have the same need to go out there. They have the same need to also materialize, to buy nice things. So I think, of course, those who express their wish, they do it in a loud voice, but I don't think we are yet there that we have it on a massive scale. And I'm saying this for one particular reason. I think it is our responsibility as the industry to really make this a standard. Mm-hmm. Because I think if we just wait for the customer to want it, I'm not sure if we'll succeed.
Well, it may be too late also. I mean, some of these things require a lot of planning and development. It just isn't something that just starts to happen on a turn of a dime. So I'm sure that your organization is involved in that, and I know the training programs that you run help develop that too. Let's move over to Glenn Menza. Glenn is the CEO of World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. In many ways, you're a pioneer in this space, having worked for decades in sustainable tourism. So I'd be curious about your point of view, what role hospitality plays in tourism innovation, and it would be good to hear some of the priority initiatives that you're working on with some of your members right now.
Well, it's critical. Industry has to be at the table to actually drive innovation when it comes to thinking about sustainability. So the Alliance itself has a significant portion of the hospitality industry globally, focused on what we call net positive hospitality. And I think it really ties into what you're talking about, locality. So this is about giving back to the destination for which we have the privilege to operate within, more than we take out. It's really fundamental to the way we approach business. And this is really important. We have to shift the way we business practice. Our sustainability strategy, or our business strategy, is our sustainability strategy when it comes to this. And I think you talk about customer. One of the key attributes or key parts of the customer, if you will, is the employee of the future. Mm-hmm. And the employee of the future certainly want to work for companies, as we all know, with a higher purpose. And if your company is talking but not actually achieving this idea of giving back, they're going to go across the street and work for somebody else. And we have members within our membership that are opening 2 hotels every single day for the next 3 years. You have to wonder who's going to work in some of these places if we don't take a better approach to thinking about the way we do our business practice. And so the industry has come together in a pre-competitive way. It's interesting, we started in 1992. By then, Prince, now King Charles III, who called together the 11 largest hotel companies to start talking about this stuff. And it stayed that same size for 30 years. And then about 2.5, 3 years ago, we grew 400% and really became this global movement. And it continues to grow in that effort. And it came when we adopted this North Star of net positive hospitality. It had to really drive innovation. And this is talking about, there's a lot of people outside our industry that don't think we take this very seriously. And a lot of the people actually are in the financial community. And they tell me, we put our money elsewhere and you don't even know it because we don't think you're taking it seriously. So it's really important that we take bold effort to showcase and stand out from every other economic sector that don't talk in this term of net positive. They talk about net zero or just sustainability, which is simply just maintaining and not actually being regenerative. So there's a real opportunity to be that sort of guardian of the planet, the guardian of the community, that we have a vested interest in ensuring that we do. And so that's really exciting to get the industry together in a pre-competitive way, talking about how we measure progress, created a net positive pathway to success. They have their global academy for training by department. And they do accelerator programs where they do actual projects on the ground, test it, and then scale it. Because it's part of this is a seeing is believing exercise. Because there's people that don't believe you can do it. But we shoot ourselves in the foot a lot in this world of sustainability because we talk in acronyms and we talk in so many different terms. And it loses people. And it loses the operator that's on the ground that actually has to make the change. So we have to really simplify it, be very clear with our messaging, and change this notion that we are actually taking action. I mean, we're very blessed to be in this space right now. There's no doubt Saudi Arabia is taking action, and they're taking bold action that is actually showcasing to the world, and is a key part of our membership to show how others can do it. And so that's what we have to do more of, and that's what the Alliance, in a pre-competitive way, is doing right now.
You know, it's an interesting point you bring up about attracting employees, because obviously, you know, tourism, hospitality, these are industries that that require lots of employees on the ground servicing people. And I know, you know, at my company, Condé Nast, when I joined 5.5 years ago as the CEO, and went around all around the world where we operate, talking to employees, and really wanted to understand what some of the key things that were on their mind. This was one of them. Yeah. Sustainability. Many, many questions about what is our strategy going to be, what is our position going to be, and I loved it. It was great because it was something I could get all of our employees engaged in, but it was also really clear, like, if this wasn't something that we really believed in and leaned into, we might have trouble attracting and retaining employees.
And they know how the sausage is made. They can see it. They're working it, living it, and they will go somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just say, there's QR codes going around. Hopefully you've all seen it. And if you want, there's an app, Slido. I think if you use the QR code, you can submit questions. If we have time at the end, we'll try to do some of the audience questions. So please feel free to do that. I'm going to do a few questions where I'm just going to ask whoever wants to answer. Please feel free to do it. First is, what are the best examples that come to mind for you where innovative strategies brought successful tourism economic models along with, you know, the benefits of biodiversity protection or cultural heritage protection? And who do you think is doing this the best?
I think if I may comment here, because and share Saudi Arabia example, because we are coming late and we are investing more than $500 billion to build the new destinations like Neom, Red Sea, Qiddiya, Diriyah, and Al Ula. We are taking and building the sustainability at a very early stage from the design phase. We ask the design companies to make sure that we use an environment-friendly material when we build, and we ensure that the operator they use the environment-friendly material, paper cup instead of plastic cup when they operate, and so on and so forth. And therefore, for us, it might be easier. I think it is more expensive to build an environmental friendly hotel than a traditional hotel. However, over time, definitely it pay back, and therefore we are doing this in the Red Sea and in Al Ula and Diriyah. If I take Al Ula as an example, I don't think we are making money from Al Ula. We are respecting the environment while building one stories building and hotels. We are, distributing the hotels around the area. We protected the old town. We used the same material, the mud, to rebuild the damaged part of the old town, and so on and so forth. And we listed everything that we have done in the Al Ula to be like an example to be followed or guided by. Same thing in the Red Sea. When we are building the Red Sea resorts and the marinas, we made sure that we use the material that will not damage the coral reefs. When we design the marinas, we make sure it is far away from the corals. The coral reefs, it takes millions of years to prosper and to grow. We cannot damage it in no time. And we are very strict when it comes to the kind of fuel the cruise ships are using and where to throw waste. We'll be more than happy to, through KAUST or through the Saudi Sustainability Center, to share all this knowledge that we have invested in the last few years. But for current destinations, they can do a lot of things to reduce the energy consumption, the water consumption, and the food consumption in order to control the carbon emissions. I think we're very proud of what we have done. I'm very sure there are a lot of, again, another great examples in Costa Rica. I've seen examples, and in many other countries where we can learn from and be guided by.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say you hit it right on. Costa Rica, Belize, some obviously significant parts of Africa where you see a connection to the community. It's imperative the community. It's interesting, and it's sad state that we're living in a society in a global environment where a dead tree is more valuable than a live tree when you think about it economically. The one part of the world industry, though, is the tourism industry brings value to the live things, these live trees that are there. And this is what we're seeing in those destinations that do protect the natural habitat. We give value to things. Like we could hear other industries may not have that priority in mind, whereas without that is no destination to protect. And so there's where tourism can play a big role. And places like Costa Rica, I would say, for absolutely, as it's built its entire marketing campaign, Belize and others like that are primary example. And here, in Switzerland.
Of course, I was hoping. No, actually, I'm getting asked that question a lot, obviously, from the tourism providers. They ask, what is a best practice example for a hotel, for a mountain railway, for a tourism attraction? Give me 2-3 examples so I can copy them or be inspired by them. Yeah. And usually I answer with them, it's not actually another competitor or another look-alike, who does it better or who does it more sustainable. I think you should go deeper than that. And I always bring up, we have a restaurant chain in Switzerland. It's called Hiltel, and it's pure vegetarian for 100 years. But that's just a side story. But what this restaurant does, it is so incredible cool. It is so tasty. It is so great. Their staff are fabulous. After 6, they slowly dim the light and it becomes a club. It is the most amazing restaurant. So you go there, you eat there, or you party there, you meet your friend, you have a wonderful time, and at the end of the day, you go home, you're happy, everything is fine, and you realize, oh wait, I didn't eat a single piece of meat and I'm not missing it at all. And I think it's the mindset. We need to make sure that we're not walking through the world with forbidding traveling, forbidding air travel, eat no meat, and so we need to make it fun. And I think who else than the tourism industry can make sustainability fun? This is our core. We need to make it so desirable, so fun, so great that at the end of the vacation, our visitors have done something enormously helpful for the environment and didn't even realize it. So that should be the task.
Bill?
When we study the way we deal with the world today, we realize that there's a biosphere and a technosphere. So the biosphere is the world of living things, and we can design to be consistent with that, things that can return to nature. The technosphere is things that can return to technology in circles so they don't contaminate the biosphere. What I love about the notion of the tourism, and we did this when we started on Red Sea, that we started thinking, what does it mean to have regenerative tourism, which is this net positive idea? Because what if you go to a place and it gets better because you went there? Well, that's wonderful, because if you did that, then it's self-similar that you get better when you went there. So why wouldn't you go to a place that's regenerative of your own spirit, too? So imagine being in a place where you take your children and say, look, the world is getting better. You're part of it. And here's this. And you can participate. Because we want regenerative tourism, which also means people will want to come back. So this idea of creating an emotional connection as well as a physical one, and then offering the children hope, I think it's the biggest thing. For me, it's all about children. I don't like language that scares children. Like we do a lot of design and products. I never say to my children, I'm designing for the end of life. What? Designing for the end of life? What are you doing? Or this net zero even. I mean, net zero is nothing. What are we leaving the children with? Net zero? It's not that exciting. So I think that's why net positive, which we've been using forever, is a really critical idea. And I think that's something that's now embedded within the tourism in Saudi, is that we're inviting people to come and celebrate the future of the world with us. The past is prologue. There's a future in front of us.
What are some examples of partnerships that we could talk about that really stand out, especially as it relates to regenerative tourism, in your mind, whether they're public-private partnerships or other kinds of partnerships? Can we hear about some examples, maybe? Yeah, Martin.
I think mobility. Mobility is key because obviously you're talking about the credibility of sustainable. Tourism is not sustainable, and it's obviously focusing on aviation, right? It's air travel, which has still a long technical path ahead to make it net positive.
Right.
So everybody, and in particular media, and everybody is focusing on that. And this is actually our Achilles heel. It is our weakness. So I think it is our job as a tourism responsibility to shift the narrative to the ground where we can actually have an impact. So, and that's actually on the ground. Yeah. And with us, for example, again, Switzerland, we are very proud on collaborating with the public transportation system. We are very proud of the public transportation system. We make it very easy. We make it affordable. We make it convenient. You can buy a pass and then you can just travel around. You can go in each and every remote corner of Switzerland. And I think that's, in my opinion, a key because obviously the tourism is all about mobility. You move from one place to the other. So when aviation cannot solve that yet, we need to make sure it's done on the ground. And public transportation, in particular train travel, is a very key partnership.
And the work we do in the Alliance, quite frankly, with our partners like you talked about, WTTC, UN Tourism, WEF, these are organizations we work with as an alliance to drive change within industry and the public sector. It's interesting when our members get together. It's interesting. It's a pre-competitive conversation. There's an open sharing of IP when this happens. And so, for example, Marriott created a global human rights course that is for training for employees around the world within their team. They spent $2 million on it. They give it to us. We share it with all the industry. That's a typical example of how change can catalyze, because if every company had to do it individually and try and make the effect of the change, we'll never get there. But as a collective, we work with destinations as well in order to test, as I mentioned, acceleration of specific initiatives, test data collection, how to measure progress. You have to talk the same language, otherwise you don't know if you're actually making a difference. And so this is where we're seeing it at that level of change to make the difference, because otherwise we'll still be talking about this, the same thing 20 years from now.
If I may share our experience, because we are new to this industry, and we are investing, we are investing heavily and prudently, respecting the environment, and therefore we try to embed the sustainability in every step of the process. But one good example is the partnership between the government and the Aqua Power, which is a private sector company in the green hydrogen. I think the government will buy the production, and we are expanding on this a lot. Other examples in mobility, for example, the electrical train and cars, etc. In order to further expand control the carbon emissions and reduce it to, as we promised, go to achieve net zero by 2060. Another example is the announcement of the Green Riyadh initiative and Green Saudi initiative, where we commit to plant billion trees and and to achieve 300 million trees, to plant 300 trees by 2030. We have already planted 44 million trees, and this is a jointly public and private sector initiative. I think there is a lot to do when it comes to sustainability, and when the private sector see the value, they will definitely contribute and join. But this is a systematic risk. If Saudi Arabia achieve a net zero by 2060 and others can't achieve, for we live in one planet. We will not have a clean, will not be 100% clear. And therefore, with the Paris Agreement and putting sustainability and environment in the front, and get everybody to believe in this and to work towards achieving the goal, that what will help the planet.
His Excellency mentioned that they're new to this, and the fastest growing region for tourism today is the Middle East by far. There's no other region that even comes close to the growth rate. And up until 2019, there were no tourism visas to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Zero. The only tourism was religious tourism. And now it's, I believe, 7 million people?
30 million last year.
30 million.
Yeah.
Sorry, 30 million people visiting the kingdom. And so it's a tremendous growth rate that I think is, makes this point even more critical. But because so much of what you're building for tourism is new, it gives you the chance to build it with this in mind. What roles should governments play in this, achieving these objectives?
Well, they have to be a bit of a stick and an incentive. Yeah. I mean, it's both sides of the equation. They can incentivize industry to do the right thing, and then as we see in many jurisdictions, there's standards that need to be set to rise, to get industry to rise to the moment. And our members want some of that. They want to be able to have a standard to push towards, and we hear that a lot. In fact, we see a lot from public sector that they're looking for industry to come forward and provide some guidance as to how we can, and we're seeing that within the Alliance and our members to do just that. So I think it's both sides of the equation on that front.
We were in the morning and there was a session about future of growth, and it quickly diverted into the discussion of regulation. And obviously we all hate regulations, like tourism industry doesn't need more regulations, there's enough regulations. But I think it's the question about regulation, yes or no, is the wrong question. The question is, are they smart or dumb regulations? And I think this does need smart regulations. Because everything where it's about the cohabitat, you need regulations. You need a co-living needs rules for a coexistence. And this is something everybody uses, the environment. So I think on a very smart level, there are regulations required, as we have rules on the streets, so everybody drives the same way. Like we have rules in law, like we have rules for hygiene and safety. And I think this is where you actually need to place and plot sustainability. I don't think at the moment, and maybe not in the future, sustainability will not be a motive, a travel motive. You're not picking a destination because it is particularly sustainable, but you refrain from all the others who are not.
Yeah,
so it becomes a hygiene factor, like safety, security, and laws, and we need to make sure we are fast ahead of that, so we are not on the other side of the fence.
If I may, William, if you allow me.
Please.
Regulation is very important, because we don't know if I am a hotel operator or owner. I don't know what you need from me. I will build the traditional hotel and operate it, but you need to, or the airline operator or airport operator and so on and so forth. But I need the regulations to be clear. Regulations, to build an airport environmental friendly or hotel environment friendly, etc. It is more expensive than the traditional ones, because of the economy of scale, because of the availability of material, and so on and so forth. And therefore, governments has to step in and trying to provide some kind of subsidies or incentive, and so on and so forth. And the third pillar is the awareness. You have to make people aware of what they want, not only the investors and the operator, but also the tourists themselves. You know, they have to get enough awareness of how to respect the forest in Switzerland, how to avoid throwing plastic in the sea, and so on and so forth, which will definitely help a lot. And last but not least, we have to simplify it, because it's very complicated today. What do you need from me? If I go to a hotel here, they will ask, what do you need from me? You know, how can I reduce the carbon emission in my hotel by 50%? You know, just give me something to do, and I will do it. But you know, we're not simplifying what needs to be done. Actually, we are making it more complicated. But we definitely need to invest in simplifying the ask.
You know, so there's certainly countries where there's a lot of development happening. We have, you know, obviously Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Switzerland being another example. But there's probably people here in the audience that are thinking about, how can I apply this to my local community? Where, you know, if we don't have the infrastructure that all of you have talked about, where could we start? What's a good starting point to bring and develop sustainable tourism to their local communities? Any advice you'd have for that?
I'd like,
Please, Bill.
The idea of talking about the regulations is important, because in many cases, regulations are signals of design failure. It's the state stepping in and saying, wait a minute, this isn't going to work. We're going to ask you to regulate this. And really what that's looking for is a level playing field. Because I think that's a key thing for commerce, is a level playing field, so that people aren't gaming the system. But it is what we do when we compete. The word competition in athletics does not mean kill the other. It means get fit together. right? But there is a set of rules, like it's flat, and you're running around an oval. You know, there are rules, and you need the rules. Otherwise, you can game the system. So, I think one of the things that everybody can do is think of fundamentals. What we like to do is look at what we call the 5 goods. Thank you. Good materials, local, safe, healthy materials, so on, cost-effective. A good economy, regenerative, circular, so that we are accruing assets rather than destroying sources. You know, people talk about natural resources. Nature doesn't have resources. Nature has sources. And it's the job of humans to turn them into resources. Interesting. So that's the economy. And then we get to the renewable energy, and that's why I think what's happening in the kingdom is so astonishing, because every time we work in these big projects, there's no discussion. It is going to become renewably powered. It is the discussion. And then we want clean water. Of course, every child, every day, clean water. It's a human right. And then finally, we want good lives, right? So you do those 5 things wherever you are and create level playing fields for us all to compete on that, and the world will get better as we go forward.
Mm-hmm. And building on that, it's the first question to ask is to talk to your residents. The residents have to want this because too often it's somehow imposed sometimes, and you find destinations have to pay the price down the road, and you get now the word over tourism, which was the Oxford Dictionary Word of the Year in 2018, and it's not a good look for the brand of the industry. Yeah. And because tourism can be a force for good when managed appropriately. So making sure you have the right infrastructure in place, making sure the plan is in place, being clear on the objective that is built by the resident, like you've done in Saudi right from ground zero here, and the work that you're doing in grading the infrastructure at the front end, so that you don't find destinations that are facing the challenges that we find in key areas. And quite frankly, it's not an over-tourism issue, and it's an overcrowding issue, right, because it's just a lack of community management. I agree. It's, great places to visit are also great places to live, and that's why people are going there. And so this is a challenge that the industry is taking on, but the great starting point is it has to come from the grassroots.
All right, how about a fun question for each of you? Where's some place that you're planning to visit this year that you're excited about? And obviously, if it is a sustainable tourism location, you get an extra point for that.
I will comment on the previous question.
Okay.
What kind of advice we can give to destinations? Mm-hmm. Just simplify it. Don't make it complicated. Focus on the few things that will have a big impact. Food waste, water waste. Once you do this, and then think about net zero, which is extremely challenging, but at least control the carbon emissions. So I think, using the right building material, controlling the food waste, controlling the water waste will have a very big impact on the environmental sustainability. Going back to your question, I'd love to add to the 122 countries I visited in my life. I wish. I think I have in my checklist New Zealand.
Okay.
I'll go and visit New Zealand. Yeah.
Bill?
New Zealand.
Oh.
My father was a fly fisherman.
Yeah.
And before he died, he said, "You have to promise me, Bill, you're going
we'll go together then.
You're going to New Zealand. Yeah, let's go." So we're going to Iceland every year for 52 years.
Yeah.
It's time to go to New Zealand.
Well, maybe as important as where you go, it is when you go, because we have an infrastructure we build or we have, and I think it is our job as a tourism professional to make sure we make the most out of it. Mm-hmm. And the occupancy rate of our hotels, restaurants, air seats, mobility are as full as possible. And here we still have a job to do. We still work with high season and low season and high season prices and low season prices. So I'm trying to answer that question by I'm going in the off season. It doesn't matter where, but I'm definitely not adding more capacity shortage. And I think that's one of the goals, to make sure that we have attractiveness in our destinations, which is not only 1 month a year or 3 months a year. So we should work on our destinations that they are attractive for as many months as possible. Maybe not 12. That's almost impossible, but as many as possible. I think that's very, very key. Otherwise, we're doing poor visitor management, we have overcrowd, and we're not making use of this expensive infrastructure. Tourism infrastructure is so expensive, so we need to make sure we have an occupancy. We are doing really well in Switzerland, but if you look across the entire year, we have an occupancy rate in our hotels of 50%.
Yeah.
Every second bed is empty. Not now in Davos, that doesn't count, but otherwise, so we still need to really make sure we can fill up this existing capacity.
Great.
Yeah. Well, I have the privilege of working in this job, which, enables me to see a lot of places in a given year. And one of the things I have to do more of is just stay a little bit longer when I go to these events like this.
There you go.
And so if I was to answer that question, I would say Davos. And I want to put it on the list. It's got to be. And I'm only here for 2 days, which I would have loved to have been here longer, so I will be back. And so I would just say my answer to that, because I think what I want to do is anywhere I go is just immerse myself a little bit longer in the destination.
Great. We talked earlier about, what do we hear from our children? And I have 3 adult children. And I remember we always do these very active vacations, and I planned one a few years ago. And my 2 sons called me out. It's like, about the sustainability, I won't say where it was, the sustainability practices of where we were going.
They see it.
And so this year we're doing a surfing trip to Fiji,
Wow.
which I think, and we've done this trip before, but but what I hear from them is besides the great waves for surfing, they talk a lot about how tourism works with the local community and the indigenous people there, and that's important to them. And so I certainly hear it from my contingent.
Yeah. True. Exactly.
How about, where is some place that maybe we haven't heard about, where you see something really innovative happening in this space, that 5 years from now it'll be all well known to everybody? But where's some place that's really out front? I know there's a lot in Saudi Arabia because of the development you're doing, but maybe other markets too.
I think we are doubling our key rooms in the next 5 years, from 400 to 800,000 key rooms, building new destinations where I invite you all to come and experience. But definitely, and as you know, the fact is 90% of the travel business is concentrated with about 10% of the countries all around the world. And therefore, it is a very concentrated industry. 100 million visit France, out of the 1.4 billion, and therefore, it is very concentrated. I love the Pacific, but it is not well connected. Connectivity is important. Africa, Pacific, Caribbeans are beautiful. Beautiful islands, beautiful countries, an amazing culture, but connection. When you fly, you want to have an option to fly out. They're not well connected, and unfortunately, therefore they have long way to go, and to convince the air carriers to fly flies to them. For example, I visited Palau in the Pacific, about 4 hours from Fiji. And it's paradise. It's beautiful, but they have 2 flights a week from.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to go there. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of Saudi Arabia, and I know that it's difficult to name one place, but if someone was going to travel there and you could only choose one place to see, what would be the top of your list?
It depends. If they are flying to enjoy the cool summer, which is cooler than Europe, they go to the mountain in the south in August. It's it's cooler than Europe.
Yeah.
If they want to go and enjoy the islands and the sea, the beach, they go to the Red Sea. And if they want to enjoy the history and heritage, we have the Dir'iyya and we have the Al-Ula, the inspiring Al-Ula. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Any others? Any other hot spots you see up and coming?
It's interesting. I think, you know, like the Kazakhstans, Uzbekistans, all those areas that haven't been on the radar, and the experiences that are coming back from when people hear it. I think those are areas we're going to hear a lot more about.
That's great. All right, with that, I think we are at time right now. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for our hosts at Saudi House, His Excellency, for our host in Switzerland, Martin, thank you very much, and for all of you for being here today. We appreciate it. Thank you.